but we'll make it work. All right, so it looks like everyone's here for now. If any late stragglers come in, we can all give them a hard time. But thank you for meeting me down here, and I apologize for all the changes. So Jennifer was able to procure somebody for her literacy director's meeting, and that meant we needed to move. As far as canceling, it wasn't going to work out to cancel, so we were going to go up to room 241, which is actually smaller than this. So I'm kind of glad to find out late at last minute's notice that the audio didn't work, so we were able to move down here. And so our friends online, if you have any questions, I'll be checking in from time to time. This is being recorded because I know, again, we're fewer numbers because some of our districts have K-12 literacy directors, and they are paying attention to the DIBELS, and I can't remember what else is going on. Yes, they've got a lot of stuff going on. So thank you for being here today. Just a real quick, we'll do a roundtable of who is here, and just tell us one thing about yourself. I'll start with you, Janice.
I'm Janice Johnson. I'm the secondary literacy specialist for Granite School District, and I already told you stuff about myself, so.
Ashley Addis, I'm at CASH. I'm secondary literacy and secondary instructional coach.
And I'm Melissa Engel from Salt Lake District. I'm filling in for Patty Patterson today because she is K through 12. And I'm at the school summit West, Highland, and Northwest.
I'm Lauren Nall Rinda, just haven't changed my last name yet, and I am the new ELA teacher specialist at Ogden School District. Been here, this is my 3rd month, so I'm excited to be here.
I'm Jennifer Swenson. I'm from Logan District, and this is Wanda Pearson. She is my student teacher, so.
Yeah, so I'm Wanda Pearson, student teacher. I'm just excited to observe and learn from you guys, so thank you for having me.
I'm Mindy Loki. I'm the secondary language arts and visual arts administrator in Georgia School District.
Jared,
I was trying to think of something about me, but that's probably enough.
I'm
tall. For the people on the internet. She is. She is.
Okay, Jared Fossen at UEN, and I'm just a technology integration specialist trainer. So.
What about yourself?
The Rams, I'm a big Rams fan. They won, so happy.
There you go. I'm Megan Lopez. I am the secondary language arts and WIDA assessment specialist here at USBE, and something about myself. In my 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So if my mind is just out the door, I apologize. As we go through this literacy directors meeting today, I will try to keep an eye on the chat box for Garrett so we can address questions as we go.
Awesome.
I'll be his assistant.
And I'm Garrett Rose, secondary English language arts specialist, and I'm going to New Orleans on Super Bowl Sunday. So that should be an interesting,
Don't be mad.
riot-inducing, fever-pitched day. So, yeah. All right. So today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the secondary literacy framework. For those of you who haven't been on board with that, we've talked about it at the last couple of literacy directors meetings. And I've got some copies over there, as well as a copy on the Drive, Google Drive, with the elementary literacy framework. Oops, sorry, there's some extra paper stuck in there. And so what we were doing is after we saw the elementary literacy framework being completed, I was talking with Jennifer and thinking of ways we could introduce this at the secondary level, and thinking of changes that would need to be made. And there's been a lot of back and forth. What you see behind me here are some ideas with the different elements, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. We're going to workshop a little bit and think about ways that we can make those elements work for the secondary level. I don't expect to be that completed anytime soon. This is something that we're just chipping away at as the year rolls on. After that, we're going to have some UEN updates, and Jared Fossen's going to, why did I say Jared? I'm sorry, there's a typo there. Jared Fossen is going to walk us through some things in the UAN network and library, show us some things that we could pass on to our teachers in case they aren't aware. We're going to talk about the needs assessment that I've been conducting over the past few months. We're going to look at the writing project K-12 and some things that are coming up. So that being said, we looked at these data points back in September about the reading. We saw some red flags there when we were looking at some data points. We used ACT, we used the NAEP, and then we also looked at our SAGE scores. And we were, again, this is just a quick review of some of the things that we were looking at, especially particularly with reading and how below the benchmarks we were. Another one was the NAEP. Oops, 1 2 minutes. So we feel good that in 2015 and 2017 that our 4th grade, we are ranked 9th and 7th respectively. But if you look at the percent proficient, that doesn't feel that great. And we look at 8th grade, which is even lower. Again, we're in the top 10. That's fantastic. That's great. Pat ourselves on the back. But then we look at the proficiency percentage, and that's nothing to call home about. And so one of the things that at the elementary level that they were trying to do is using this literacy framework to get teachers and building administrators talking to each other to see what kinds of things they could do to improve, to self-assess, and then also get assessed from their building administrator to see which ways they can improve these literacy scores. We feel great being in the top 10. We don't feel good about those numbers though. Megan shared this one with us when we looked at we had the changes in the SAGE, and we looked, she highlighted a couple of cohorts. And so, I mean, there's some brightness ahead. You can elaborate on this a little more than I can, but looking at the 6th grade ELA, what's happening there that's causing those percentages to increase, and also with the 9th grade cohort, what's happening with those percentage decreases? What are some things that you've seen on your end?
Well, we see student enrollment fluctuating, but 6th grade, I do think when we look at the data, we need to consider cohorts. So don't just look at 5th grade each year, because that's a different group of students. So consider the cohorts. With 6th grade, we see that their scores have been increasing, so that's fantastic. With 9th grade, we see that their enrollment has jumped. However, their proficiency has gone down. One thing that I think we need to consider, though, is when we look at the 2018 scores, there was less data to actually go into that proficiency because we only had one writing prompt. So that's less of a chance for students to prove their proficiency. And I think also something to keep in mind as we come into this new year of testing with RISE and Utah Aspire Plus is that we're going to see even less because writing will only be in 5th and 8th. So keep that as a consideration. So 5th and 8th will only have writing. The off grades, the other grades, not an off grade, because I don't want to consider off. You can just take it off. No, please don't. They will only have the reading portion of the test to prove their proficiency. And for 5th and 8th grade, it'll just still be one prompt. With 9th and 10th, we will have the new test, and writing will not be a part of that. And we will also see, how do I want to put this? We will see different standards more heavily assessed, so there won't be speaking and listening as well on the 9th and 10th grade Utah Aspire Plus. So again, it's really going to be reading informative, reading literary, and the language standards that the students will really need to show their proficiency in. That does not mean we don't want writing and speaking and listening taught. Those are just as important, and really, truly, we don't know, with ACT in 11th grade, we don't know what will happen with writing, so we still need to see writing across the board. And the tests are forever evolving and changing. So I don't know what kind of trends we're going to see. We do have 11th grade there because some LEAs choose to still give the SAGE. That will not be an option. 11th grade will only have the ACT available to them. One thing that I do think that we should take a look at, though, for 9th and 10th grade is we will get a predictability score for the ACT as well now, to let us know what path students are on as far as college and career readiness. So we will be getting different data as well. I would just say always keep an eye on how those grades, those cohorts are evolving, growing, fluctuating. You know, to me, the fact that 9th grade in 1 year changed by 1,000 and then jumped up by almost 2,000, what was that due to? Where did those kiddos go for that year? You know, like, they're just some considerations. Am I speaking to what you were hoping to speak to?
Are these numbers, though, these aren't numbers of students enrolled? This is numbers of students who took the test?
Who took the test.
Yeah.
So we could have seen, and that's a really good point, opt-out could be a huge factor. And we did see that the opt-out rates were dropping.
Mhm.
So that's great, the value of testing, because really, truly, the message is we want just the Utah population to know this is how educators inform their instruction and how to better serve their student population. And I think that was strongly messaged out. So, yes, thank you for pointing that out.
And a huge piece of that, I'm just wondering, because I was thinking the same thing about opt-outs, but then that legislation came in that if you had a final exam before,
Opt-in.
yeah, it was either you take this final exam or the SAGE, you know, and that was a big deal for
It was
teachers.
a big motivator.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
just for what it's worth.
Yes, and that just kind of came down the pipeline this year, so we're going to see how that affects us come this spring summative testing window. Things are going to be interesting. You know, we're working our tails off, getting these assessments ready to go, and we've had just a plethora of educator committees vetting the tests to make sure that they're good to go. And really do know that with RISE, our items from SAGE, those are Utah-owned items written by Utah educators, reviewed by Utah educators. It has gone through a rigorous process to even become considered operational for any of the items. And those items are ours, and those move forward with us as we continue to create new test items for RISE. And with Utah Aspire Plus, half of that test is, again, Utah items, and then also Aspire items for that college and career readiness for those indicators. So that way we can have a link. There are going to be future standard setting and linking studies going on for all of the tests, so we can really show, you know, student performance and growth and everything as much as possible over time, given the changes. So as much as we can do. Yeah.
Is opting out an option with this new test?
Yes. Yes.
The only test you can't opt out of is the civics test.
Right, of course.
True.
What about the blueprints? Have those been released yet?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just haven't looked at them.
They're for the Utah Aspire Plus, they're a little weird defined.
Oh, okay.
But they're on the Utah Aspire Plus portal.
Oh, I know. Okay.
Um,
That's the next arrow thing.
Let me,
I know that there's Questar, AI, and then Xterra something or other.
so, I will type in into the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so for everyone online, that is the portal. So you can link to the portal for Utah Aspire Plus. And then once you're in there, I have to remember where they are. All right, you're going to go to Reporting Resources. There's a tab up top that says Reporting Resources, and when you drop down, it's a little weird to find. Then you are going to choose Additional Reporting Resources. And you will see the blueprints there, and you can access them by pressing the Blueprint tab. Reporting Resource.
Oh, Pearson access next.
So again, for those of you online, just go to the link that I put in that chat box. You will be on our landing page, our new landing page for Utah Aspire Plus.
Okay, so where would I go?
You're going to go to Reporting Resources.
Resources, okay.
And in that drop-down, you will do Additional Reporting Resources.
Okay.
And there you will find the blueprints. And that is blueprints for reading, English, math, and science. And please remember that English and reading are now separated out, whereas on RISE, those items are going to be together on the reading test, the ELA test.
So I've had some teachers ask how to prepare them for this. Is the actual, the ACT sites, are they?
Schmoop is going to be a lot better for ACT.
Yeah, it's really hard to, I tried to make it work for my ninth grade teachers and it didn't.
That's my ninth grade
It's too
teacher.
far away. It's a tricky year because like my teachers are like, well, where are the benchmarks? Where is the this or is the that? How,
Exactly.
You know? So we went out and we looked and we did the best we could. And I know that they're like, these guys are doing a killer job coming up with things and doing it. But I think this year we just kind of have to limp along a little bit. One thing we did do is trace, for our district, we traced ACT scores back to SAGE scores.
Mm-hmm.
So like what our kids last year got on ACT,
Mhm.
and then went back to where they were on the SAGE test when they were in ninth grade,
Mhm.
and help teachers look at that and see if that helped them learn some stuff.
Benchmarks will be available next year, so you will have that. And I believe that we are, if I recall the emails correctly this morning and calls this morning, question samplers will start to post on this website, on the portal, today, actually.
Cool.
So
So do all of our teachers have access to this site? Okay.
this is just the general, anyone can go
Perfect.
to and see landing
Okay.
page for Utah Aspire Plus. And so, and I think the first question sampler that will be posted I believe it's supposed to be the English one, but do keep in mind that the question samplers are not to inform content and instruction. They really are more for the students to get used to the different item types and the format that the test will be presented in. So, yeah. We are working all the time to try to get more and more resources
It's been
available.
nonstop,
Yeah. Garrett gets to listen to me. Sorry.
No, it's fantastic.
So, yeah, we are working on it. And anytime you do have questions, please do not hesitate to email me. The best piece of advice I can get is teach the core. Like, based on all the research that is out there and that even some of my colleagues in the assessment and accountability department has done on their own. It just, teaching the core rigorously is going to be the best preparation. I'm sure Garrett will back me up.
Well, and that's another thing I did for my ninth grade teachers when I met with them is I gave them the crosswalk that's K through 12. It is so amazing. My teachers thought that was the coolest thing ever. Because not only,
Good.
right, not
Yay.
only did it have like the ACT standards cross-listed with Utah core standards, but it started in kindergarten and went all the way to 12th grade and gave exemplars of activities in classrooms for every single grade level.
My
Nice
teachers
to
have
look
loved that.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It's
I'm
so
glad
good.
because that was
Thank
a labor of
Yeah,
love.
of course it was.
Where is that at?
It's
And this is
on,
on labor.
I don't know, where's Megan?
So let me direct you towards that. If you go to our USBE homepage,
Oh, no.
are you ready?
It's
So
not
that is schools.utah.gov.
Mhm.
And then just scroll down. You're going to click on our assessment and accountability button.
Where's that?
I can put the link in as
What is up at the top?
in the chat
Is that
again.
at the
There you
top?
go.
So
Oh,
you gotta
hold on.
scroll down.
Hold on a little
Keep
bit.
going. We're the green.
Yep, there you go.
Oh,
We
First one.
have our own button.
Lucky?
And
Kids
then
love
on the
it, they
right
do.
hand side,
Really?
under program menu, you're going to choose assessments. Now, the purpose of the crosswalk tool that we created was more to inform instruction for ACT. And I did present at the curriculum directors meeting,
Okay.
when was that? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
On this very crosswalk. Is that recorded and available?
I'm sure it is.
Probably on
Yeah.
YouTube or something.
Yeah. I would check on teaching and learning.
All right, if you scroll down, it should be somewhere under resources. I was told it's under resources, and I apologize if not.
I
So
think it's ACT Connections. It's the third one, isn't it?
it should be called Crosswalk.
That's it though, right?
Let me see.
Yeah.
That's it?
That is.
ACT Connection.
Yes, so it's the third
It's so good.
resource. So I'm going
And
to,
it's ADA compliant. Nice work.
oh,
That's a task in and of
so
itself.
for those of you online, I am again going to put this one into the chat.
Okay.
And I believe that should take you to the ACT tab. And if you go down to resources, again, that crosswalk tool
So good.
is that third one down. And one thing I would like to really reiterate with this is it's a snapshot of which standards really speak to what's being tested on the ACT. It is by no means every standard, but it really goes to show that instruction starting in kindergarten prepares these students for the ACT, and that teaching the core really will prepare them the best for the ACT. We don't want this crosswalk to be looked at through the lens of, I only need to teach these standards for my students to do well on the ACT, because as we know, so many, especially in English language arts, so many of our standards are tied to one another, and you can't teach one without the other. So this just shows that really, truly, it supports what we've been saying. Teach the core. That is going to prepare you best. And in studies, again, Rebecca Peterson is our ACT assessment specialist. She has extensive research and studies that she has looked into that really show that teaching the core will better prepare your students than any ACT prep course ever will. So we are hoping that this document supports that mindset.
Awesome.
I feel like I'm taking up all your time. I'm
You are
sorry.
totally fine. No, if there's questions that are, and while you're here, I want you to answer them. Because I don't want to be like, well, let me get back to you and talk to Megan first, so.
Where
I'm-
are the RISE benchmarks? Sorry.
The RISE benchmarks?
Yeah, I've had teachers asking about
There are 10.
6th and 7th grade and how the benchmark will change now that writing is not assessed.
RISE, so we do have writing benchmarks for
Or sorry, blueprint, I mean,
blueprints. Okay,
sorry.
let me see if I can find those. Okay, so I'm going to put another,
Quest, is that question?
I'm going to, oops, I'm sorry, don't ignore that, just ignore that, I messed up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was trying to, I'm going to put the link where you can find RISE blueprints now. So if you go to the RISE portal, and then you click on the Teachers and Administrators tab, and I believe the link that I just put in there should take you right there. Just scroll down, and at the bottom you're going to see Resources and Tutorials, and you should see a button that says Summative Blueprints. It doesn't look like you can click on it, but you can. I should filter it out, and you will see all the blueprints for.
I missed it. So I'm on this page.
Awesome, thank you.
Click on Teachers and Administrators.
Okay, that's what I missed.
And then just scroll all the way down. Okay, and I hope that Jared's not leaving because I've taken his, okay, good. I'm taking his time. He's like, I'm done with Megan. She's taking over this meeting. And so that's where you can find blueprints for RISE.
So, sorry, but
That's
question.
okay.
So writing, 5th and 8th, and I guess I just expected those to look different with the writing assessment. I don't see writing strand listed for 5th or 8th.
So you will only see the ELA. Those did not change, and basically what, sure.
Excuse me.
RISE is writing just in 5th and 8th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So the way that'll work is that we used to get a composite.
Mhm.
There will no longer be a composite. It'll just be ELA, and that will just be writing. And the writing will be just one prompt. Whether the student gives an informational prompt or an argumentative prompt in secondary. If it's elementary, it would be opinion and info. But whether they get info or argue is totally random within a class. We took that to an educator committee, and they said we want it random within a class so we can get the most data. We don't want one class doing one, because what if I teach an honors class? That's not going to tell me how I'm instructing on that specific type of writing necessarily. So they wanted it random within a class. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. But when you click on the samplers, and the way you click on the samplers is just above, where it says go to sampler, you will see the rubrics have not changed. So if you click on go to sampler, you can still see how students are scored on writing. You just need to select under subject writing, and then you will select for secondary 6 through 8. And under supplemental scoring, you'll click on the answer key, and you will see how
The same.
the original, so the rubric for grading and weight has not changed.
Gotcha. Cool, thank you.
You have to be under writing. That's the only.
Oh, did I put the, oops. Just kidding.
So while he finds that, I'm sorry, Garrett.
You're totally fine.
Is there any way other than, so like on Sage Portal, when your students tested, the only way to tell if they got an argument or an expository prompt was to actually go into each individual student report and see the rubric and like the green and the yellow, red, or whatever. Is there with this new system going to be a better way of drilling down to that? It's a lot of perseverance.
Lots of clicks.
Yeah.
Our favorite saying is, why click once when you can click 11 times? We get click happy. So for RISE, Kim Rathke is, she's in charge of test administration and also kind of how teachers retrieve all the information.
Okay.
She would be able to answer that question.
Okay.
Based on the conversations that I've been in and what I've seen, it should be easier, less clicks.
Cool.
Hopefully.
I know.
I'm worried that I say less and like,
It's like
you know,
10
it was
more.
11 and it's like 10. But I would direct questions like that of how are we going to see this? What's it going to look like? You know, will we be able to just see this on an individual student report immediately? Or when we go to pull up our student scores, what's it going to look like?
Yeah.
She will be able to speak to that much better than I can.
Okay. Thank
So.
I'm done now. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
No
They're good questions.
apologies.
When we can get Megan here, I know there's assessment questions that can abound, so I'm totally fine with that. It's a happy diversion.
I'm sorry, I'm not even on the agenda.
But you will be next time, so we'll bug you even more. Because I know there's going to be,
Will I be on the agenda?
yeah,
Okay, we talked about that.
well, I'm telling you. We need you here. So going back to the idea of looking at that literacy framework, and I think those were all valid points what you guys were talking about. So when the elementary developed theirs, they were looking at a lot of these different data points, and the development of the elementary version is they had a local education agency team that met. I want to say it was every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And they also had a state, so here a USBE team. And what would happen is they would go back and forth between these teams to come up with a model, with a document that they felt was something that was sustainable, something that would work for those teachers. And they used a lot of information from the 4 domains of rapid school improvement. They looked at models from other states, which we've done in previous meetings. We looked at Nevada. We didn't look at Minnesota, but we did look at Nevada and Montana. And then talking about the purpose of the framework and seeing what those data points were and why it's important. And what we came to, I want to say it was our last meeting, is we looked at the elements that were in the elementary document, and we decided that those 5 elements were things that we wanted to keep in that document, things that we wanted to develop the indicators off each one of those elements. As far as the indicators, we didn't want to get into the weeds too much. You'll notice with the elementary document that it does not go into the weeds too much. It's a very general document with the indicators. I know on the elementary level they're starting to get in the weeds with supplemental documents, which is what I envisioned for this framework. We want a general framework with the indicators to make sure they're something that we all agree on, so that those building administrators and teachers can start talking to each other about what they're doing to improve these things. And then aligning the resources to the indicators. That would be the next step. So that being said, one of the things that came up, and we're going to come back to this, is thinking about one of these elements, because we knocked out the first one, the instructional leadership. We've kind of touched on that several times, and we feel pretty comfortable with where it is right now for the time being. So out of elements 2 through 5, I want you to think about one area that you might be comfortable in addressing and talking about, looking at the suggestions from previous meetings, and we're going to put you in groups. We might run out of time to do this, but I might, you're fine. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. One of the things that came up with our USBE team was the idea of disciplinary literacy versus content area literacy. And so I wanted to pair that out a little bit to think about, because in the elementary level, they talk about things in general. The teachers are generalists when they talk about science and history and math, because to be an expert in each one of those fields would be it's already overwhelming to be an elementary teacher to begin with. Whereas The secondary, I taught English language arts. That's where my specialty was. We had science teachers that taught science. For me to try and teach both of those would have been pretty rough. Now, I know in rural districts they do that and they do it well. And maybe we can take some things from them. But that being said, I want to talk a little bit about disciplinary literacy. I really enjoyed this book. It's called This is Disciplinary Literacy. And it's Anita Archer recommended it when I was at a conference a few months ago, and I decided to order a copy. And as I started reading it, I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And as you can see, I highlighted a few things. But when we talk about content area literacy, we're talking about those general things. When we talk, you can say we talk about visible literacy or metacognition. It's like, okay, yes, those are things that we use in each one of the disciplines. But metacognition in an English language arts class is going to look a lot different than metacognition in a math class. And this is where we want to get some specifics as to what does this look like in the discipline. Now, when we go back to this document with this framework, we want to keep in mind things that are disciplinary specific, but we don't want to sit there and go, okay, in science, this is what needs to be done. In math, this is what needs to be done. I think that would come with supplemental documentation. But that being said, I stole a lot of these from Tim Shanahan, so I'm not going to even claim about half the slides are his, half of mine. But he said that reading and writing, there are specific characteristics to each discipline. And I like this quote from Lent: English teachers should not be expected to teach students how to read in every discipline any more than math teachers should be expected to teach students how to read War and Peace. Now, there are literacy skills that are cross-curricular, and we want to address those, and we want to make sure that those are being met. And don't worry about that last one with the what does the word conclusion mean to you. It's a different conversation for a different day. But I really like this quote because when I was a reading teacher in Vernal, it was like, I remember getting this chapter book and saying, okay, you're going to teach the students how to read math this week. And I was like, that is a big mistake because I don't read math very well. So I went to the math teacher and said, what are some things you do when you teach reading in your class? And she's like, well, I don't teach reading. I teach content. And I teach them how to work through a problem. But you can show them how to read math. And I was like, that's not a good idea. That is not an area that I'm comfortable with, and that's not something that I'm happy to help supplement you. But that became a frustration for me. And then when I came across this book, that's exactly what came across my mind. It was having that conversation with that teacher. And then thinking about disciplines, there's different purposes and approaches, different methods to gain that information, different kinds of evidence, and different kinds of texts. And instead of going through all of the ones that Shanahan shared, because he shared one for math and science, I decided to skip those. But looking at purpose and beliefs, and this is one of his slides, I didn't like the literature component. It says truth is irrelevant. I would say the truth is fluid in literature rather than irrelevant. But that being said, this is how he highlighted purpose and beliefs in different disciplines. And I wouldn't even pretend to say I know what that looks like in math and science or even history, but he was giving some ideas about how we look at things differently in each one of these disciplines. Looking at methods and evidence. Again, these are, in literature, I would look at what are some elements of ways to interpret the human condition. How do we know this? What do we feel when we read this? When you're looking at math, it's what's the logical thought? What's the quickest way to solve this problem? I once had a math teacher say that, or my geometry teacher said math is for lazy people, which I vehemently disagree with. And he says we're always looking for the easiest way to the solution. A very different frame of thought than you would in a history class or a literature class. He also talked about texts and approaches. Looking at, like in math, you would look at proofs. You would look at, in science, explanations, arguments, hypotheses, and how you would approach those. And I'm going through these pretty fast, but again, these are all in the PowerPoint that are in Drive, so I apologize if I'm going a little fast, because I want to make sure we have a bit of time to at least discuss the framework. Content area reading touts the idea that every teacher is a teacher of reading. Now, again, Shanahan kind of pits them against each other. I don't think that's the case. That what I look at it as how does content area literacy and disciplinary literacy work together. When we look at disciplinary literacy, saying that not every teacher knows how to teach general reading, but they should be equipped in teaching reading and writing in their specific discipline. Here's what it looks like to read a science text, as compared to when they're in their English class. This is what we do when we read a piece of literature. Content area reading asks what is the same across the disciplines, whereas disciplinary we get a little more specific. What's different compared? Again, content area reading, highly generalizable, whereas disciplinary we're looking at specific ways, specialized students as help those students specialize between those different subject areas. And again, sorry for moving a little bit fast. The way I looked at it is, and this is a slide from Shanahan, as I looked at the intermediate literacy as kind of the content area. That's where you get very general. That's where what works, what are some ways that we acknowledge metacognition or questioning or feedback. Whereas when we get to disciplinary, it's like, okay, here's what questioning would look like in a science class, as opposed to in history we would question the author's bias. We would, in science, yes, you question the author's bias, but you also question the process as well when you come from a hypothesis to your conclusion. So that being said, we'll just move it forward. I want you to think about picking one of the elements that that I showed you up here in a little more depth, what you're more comfortable with. Go back just a little bit, sorry. We're bouncing around and I apologize. So I want you to either work in pairs on one of the elements to update for secondary use, and how you would do that, and again, we're a little short on time, is you would go to the literacy director's link that I gave you. The literacy framework is in here for elementary. That's not the one I want you to work on. It would be this document right here. This has the elements in it. So as you can see with element 1, we've already made quite a few changes. We talked about disciplinary literacy. D was the only one that we really made any significant changes to. When we got to element 2, this is where we kind of ran into a halt, because our USD team was like thinking, what are some ways that we can get disciplinary specific? What are some ways that this would look like? They were having a hard time following what we were trying to do with the document, and so we decided to kind of put a halt to it and get some more feedback from our local education agencies first to bring back to the state team. So that being said, are there any questions? I'm sure there probably are, about what I'd like to do over the next 15 minutes.
You showed,
Go back here a second. Made the mistake of looking at the TV screen.
so it must be the second part of what that says.
Element 1.
Element 1? Okay.
Yeah.
Which you want us to look at? Elements beyond?
Elements 2 through 5. So this was, Jennifer titled it element 1, but she put all the elements in there. So sorry, that's a little misleading. So if you could, if you want to download it so that you can start making some changes, compare it to the elementary framework, which we have a paper copy here for you, or it's also online. And I think we're going to run out of time, which that's okay, because we had a lot of really good conversation about assessment and some things that needed to be updated. I'm glad we did, so thank you for that. But the literacy framework is right here. The element document is right here. Just take a look at, so again, these were the recommendations made back in...
Can I ask one question
Sure.
for chat?
Yeah.
For those of you online, Kim, she says, do you want us all working on the same document? If, do you want them to open it and make changes right there, or make a copy?
Well, it's in Word, so it's going to have to change to start.
Well, it's a Google Doc, right? So everyone can get it.
Wasn't.
So you can open it with Google Docs.
What if we all do it?
But that means we all
Then
have,
we'll all have a million copies. True.
there's not a million of us, so maybe it won't be overwhelming.
But for those of you online as well participating,
So maybe make a copy and then do it on your own, and then you
Yeah.
can submit it to you.
Yeah, I think that'll work. And then there's not that many people, so I can work through that. You can just highlight your name and then put the changes in you want, and then I can just copy those into a Word document to clean it up. That's a great question.
Would you rather it's just working comments rather than make direct changes?
Yeah, let's have the online people make a copy. I don't know. I think comments would actually work better. where you would just type your suggestions in the comments on the document. Yeah, that works better. Thank you for that. I was trying to think through that and it took me a second, but yeah, I think that would be more effective.
So do you want to get on Janice's document?
Would you like me to share with you?
No, it's okay. It's shared because it's already in the shared folder.
So for those online.
So I'm gonna hop on
Copy
yours.
and title
If
it.
we-
Okay.
Then it's not.
You
Is
see
that
one
wrong?
that says
What's that?
Janice Johnson, that means mine. We're there.
Name in the drive.
Yeah, that would be good. And that'll help me kind of cycle it down. So we won't have as much time to work on this, but what I would like you to consider is getting done what you can in the next 15 minutes or so. But if you could dedicate like another half hour outside of this meeting, and if you want to take longer, I'm more than welcome to that, and make some comments about changes you'd like to see that would be specific for the secondary framework, but also keeping in mind some ideas with disciplinary literacy. Again, we're not going to get into the weeds too much with this document. It's going to be more general. It's going to be framed much like the elementary. There are some specific differences between secondary and elementary, and sometimes it's just semantics with language, but other times there's some things that we'd like to see specific to secondary school. Any other questions? So pick an element that you're interested in. These were the recommendations from before. Keep those in mind, and go ahead and have at it. I should have taken a picture of those and put them in as JPEGs. I want to keep working on the supportive culture because that's that's what I'm looking for.
Well,
Are you?
With your bridge.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to read element 2 right now. I have no idea.
What do we think about explicit systematic instruction? Do you always want to use explicit instruction for students in reading and literacy?
It is.
Not always.
Let me just send you the link. It was in one of the emails I sent previously, but I'll send it to you right now.
So
Looking at literacy.
we went over the disciplinary literacy stuff.
Some
You got it?
of the comments, there's that little,
What do you,
Yep.
like,
that
speech
kind of
bubble up
thing
in the
here?
corner.
Is that what
Yep.
Yeah.
So to make comments, all you do is you just highlight where you're talking, and then you go up to that little speech bubble.
Which one did
oh, thank you.
It's in front of the share button.
this one?
What are cognitive engagement strategies? Do we have a central understanding for those? No. Okay, we
Probably-
recognize that reading includes cognitive strategies like reflecting on anything you know when you've made a mistake or you've lost meaning. So I'm not sure what cognitive engagement strategies are.
Put a question mark on that and come back to it.
We'll put a comment right there.
Perfect.
I would say that's one of those buzzwords in like,
That sounds like an elementary buzzword. To me.
well, or that people would define differently depending on their context.
Uh-huh.
Like personalized learning or some of those
Yeah.
terms that.
Or a central idea, main idea, theme,
For it, yeah.
which I just had a lovely conversation about that. Which is fine, but yeah.
You can comment on comments, you can.
Shut this one. If I have it. Yeah. We had one that was like specific, isn't it?
Student dating in the classroom, collective efforts and strategies.
Yes, the collective.
So this is what elementary looks like. Just a answer.
Now, under F, it says you deliver tier 2 and tier 3 instruction. So does that imply that they're occurring within the same classroom or domain? Because typically tier 3 are those kinds of
That you pull out.
separated,
right? Yeah.
pull out, or intensive kinds of stuff.
Not always, but most of the time, especially with secondary.
Yeah.
Rarely do we do tier 3 in our class. Oh, never mind. Of course we do.
Well,
Because whoever shows up, you have to take care of.
yes.
But I can't speak specifically to elementary, but I know that they have stations that they'll pull them out. And as far as tier 3, I don't know what that looks like in an elementary classroom. I mean, my kid was getting tier 2 instruction for reading just a few.
And that's usually
Weeks
done
ago.
by a pull-out teacher,
Yeah.
right? So I'm
was a
thinking this
pull-out.
under F is a pull-out program kind of model.
Uh-huh.
for elementary.
Okay.
Maybe that would be,
Yes.
I'm going to be that kid. I am confused as to exactly what, and I'm new, so don't
Oh, yeah.
judge me too much, but I'm confused as to exactly what you're wanting us to do, because as I'm looking at this and looking at that, I mean, it pretty well matches up,
If
so.
it pretty well matches up, then we
Then
can
we
move
just
on to another
leave
one.
it,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you see something, you're like, no, this makes sense to me. I do not want to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
So what I want to do is with this secondary framework and elementary framework, we actually want to put the documents together so that it can be a K-12 approach. But there are some things that are specifically different for secondary as opposed to elementary. But if you see, again, we're staying general, so if it's something that, hey, this works, because like for instruction and intervention, it was like, hey, let's keep those and then let's modify those.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So really look at it from a secondary lens
Yeah.
to make sure it fits.
Like, for
Okay.
example, scroll down to support and culture, element 5, and if you look at item F, it says schools provide families of students being served in tier 2 and 3 with updates on their child's progress at least 6 times a year. We don't do dibbles
Yeah.
in secondary, so that's not a possibility. How can this be done in a secondary school? We clearly have to modify this indicator, right? So what can we have in place for those tier 2 and 3 students that are still struggling to update and inform parents and guardians of their progress? You know, what is the recommendation ultimately?
So for example, on that one, if you said, for example, SRI, or you list some other assessments that we do, is that what you're?
Yeah,
leaning
or
towards?
even saying, you know, using various assessments chosen either by the LEA or what's available through the state, such as benchmarks that are going to be available at least,
Okay.
you know, 6
Gotcha.
through 10, right? We'll have those starting next year. So, you know, how can we take this and tweak it,
Right.
right?
Okay.
Because we know it's not going to happen.
And then with the
6 times.
supplementary documents, that's where we would add those kind of
Like
links.
SRI
Okay,
or whatever.
So this is what it would look like.
Okay.
I didn't have access to show you the elementary. They're starting to put in their supporting documentation,
Mhm.
and it's pretty cool because they're taking like pictures of books that are a link. Like this book will show you how to do this, or this specific link will take you to this, where they're getting into the weeds a little bit more. And right now, we're just kind of laying down the general stuff. Like,
Okay.
here's what it should look like with Megan's suggestion, and then eventually we'll have, and here's how you do
Okay.
it.
Gotcha. Okay, that clarifies.
Thank you.
Okay, so
You don't want to do double
Oh,
six.
look at this one.
So that's not on your list
In
of
the
things to do.
30 hours I have with them for the week.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay. Has some of this been tweaked a little?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Because it does
If
have,
it was, it should be in red.
oh,
Because I don't think we've ever gotten down this far.
a growth mindset.
Yeah.
We said that how,
Well,
what
look at all
support
the
to
buzzwords,
shift.
growth mindset, great.
I know,
Alright,
so
all
just
the
looking at
same
that,
stuff.
right, our question was,
Mindset.
students are exhibiting this,
Mhm.
but the first step is making the shift. So how does the school support a shift from a fixed mindset to a growth
Okay,
mindset?
yeah.
So this needs to include
Specific. Just to make it too specific.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to be 6.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Assessment board, let's see. We want to kind of know if we can get this one through.
We'll take about 5 more minutes. Excuse me. Is it me? Like super dry here.
Yeah.
it's Utah.
I'm like, it's like top of the mouth every 5 seconds.
That's fine, right? That's what I'm like stuck on. I'm like,
I mean, I would think
okay. Some sources of stereotypes.
it's so much.
It
It's like a
is.
standard.
So
Maybe we can make a comment that
this, yeah,
it needs to be kind of
because I could say, I could use a variety of sources.
You put the collective.
Consistent of data and like there was a student educator like right here.
I think I was just gonna say, this is a little, this is somewhat confusing,
Yeah.
simplifying. And then, could examples be given? Because I don't even know if they're given as sources of student, do you know?
No.
What is some just like data that we have, like our benchmarks or
Right.
So like, where do you
Have
put
we
it?
looked at the resources
So is
online?
that, so that, I guess
So-
that's reflecting that.
yeah, it seems like this is
So
just
she came
it
out
should
with
just
a
be
book about
a
how to
variety of
action.
Ooh.
data.
So
It's
is it
a
a
variety of sources. And so by putting in student educator system data, well, it's just sort of.
Actually, it's not even more. But either way, I haven't gotten into that book yet, so.
Assessment. So, the things that you use
But what I really like about this book is the Q&A, and it's like,
Sources
they're
of
not the
data.
best answers in the world, but
To
they're good
evaluate.
questions to get you thinking about it. I like the,
So,
what it
but
is,
if
how
you're
it
using
works,
it to
how it works.
evaluate professional
Each chapter.
development.
There it is. Oh, sweet. I just think it's just clunky and they're just.
Yes, I feel like it's clunky. Let's see. anything.
Let me see what it looks like when they're at 3, and then I can just sneak in. Take about 2 more minutes.
Comments. At
To me,
least.
it
Or
Seems
I think
seems like
that's
that.
Mhm.
go.
Well, no, I guess that's like what you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'll add
Yeah,
more.
every page. You know?
But I'll add more, but I'm done.
Yeah, that Apple battery lasts forever.
But it was like 15%.
Oh.
Yes, like dead.
I worked at a set, I was
And all it is
amazed
is,
because they
Could
gave
we
us
do
their
this?
books. I was like, this battery fills up so
Maybe we could
fast.
do
and
it like
lasts
this.
forever. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So helpful.
I should have
I had a meeting this morning and
Does the school tell you a lot about UEM? Do you guys? Yeah. Okay, good. Good.
Okay, so we are going to come back together. Jared has been waiting so patiently. But I wanted him to give a chance to highlight some things in UEN and to refresh our memories about some things that are available to us and our teachers. When I was doing the needs assessment, which I'll talk about more in a little bit, was teachers not being aware of all the resources that they have available. So this will give us a chance to see what UEN has, and I like to link most of my stuff on UEN before I put it on the USB page, because it's, when you say less, it's like 5 or 6 less clicks to get there. So I've always liked having my stuff in UEN. It's been wonderful. So that being said, I will hand this over to Jared.
All right. We will get going. So feel free to ask any questions as we go along. You don't have to apologize. Teachers always apologize for asking questions.
Because they know what it feels like.
So feel free to ask any questions. What I'm going to do is I'm just on the UEN site, and I'm going to go to the online library. And then I've got 3 main things that I want to cover today, but I'm open to going in other places as well. So we're going to start out in the Gale reference collection, grades 9 to 12. And they've made a couple changes here, but I just, first of all, want to make sure that everybody's aware of Gale and what it is. So when we go to the 9 to 12, you can see we've got 8 different databases here. And I'm going to point out a couple things that I think are good to know. And I'm going to start here in student resources and context. So this is kind of the go-to database for student research. And you'll notice that when this page loads up, that they already have some topics highlighted for you. And I mean, you'll see like this is really up to date. Like they have, Martin Luther King Day was just a couple days ago, and they have that on here. So they update this daily, and so they're always adding to resources here. I'm just going to type in the search. Somebody give me a topic.
Sharks.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go to sharks.
I was trying to think of something, upper gradish.
The only thing that came to my mind was
That'll
sleep.
I know.
I'm thinking
So,
about that shark that.
When we go to sharks, you can see that the first area is references. So those are going to be more like your encyclopedia type offerings there. And you can see that we've got 44 different references here. And then also by each heading there is a colored marker. And so the yellow is intermediate, green would be beginner, and then the red triangle is.
It looked like it might blow up if you read it.
It's a little higher reading level there. So then we've got biographies, as well as images, videos, audio, lots of magazine articles, 33,000 news articles, and then academic journals. So plenty of references and resources here for sharks. Now, I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to show you a couple things, and one of them you may or may not be familiar with, but I think it's a really nice feature. So in advanced, you can certainly dial up your, like if we're realizing, I wanted to look for great white sharks or a certain type, hammerhead, I could do that here. I also have the options to look only for full text if I want to. I think all of us have done searches before where you just get the abstract and it's like the most disappointing search you've had.
I even have that.
If you want to make sure that you're only getting the full text ones, then you can put that in. If it's a little more academic in nature, you can make sure that they're peer reviewed. And then you can search by date, document type, content. And since this is secondary, you do have the ability to go by leg style if you want to, but I would imagine most of what you're looking for is going to be higher. Now, one of the neat things that they've added to the advanced search is Topic Finder. Have you seen this before?
Love Topic Finder.
Okay, so Topic Finder, you'll see a lot of purposes for this, but I think one of the best things is, let's say with your teachers, they've got kids that just can't figure out what it is they want to research. So we'll use sharks again in our Topic Finder. This is a great way to really help kids narrow things down, figure out what it is they're looking for. So when I type sharks into the Topic Finder, you can see that I get a lot of different options here. One of them is the San Jose Sharks, the hockey teams. Then we've got Shark Attack, so if you've got like the 17-year-old boys, like that's where they're going to go.
Shark Week.
Maybe it was great white sharks or a certain type, whether it's a fish or an animal.
Bad sharks.
Now, the way that Topic Finder is set up is that the more red that it has in it, the more resources that are available in Gale for you.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is another nice thing. Like, let's say that a kid said, oh, I'm really interested in, like, little sharks.
I want to know what a cup shark is.
See, we're already
What
like,
is cup?
I think it has to do with the Stanley Cup. But I could be wrong.
Well, they have one in me, so we don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
It was.
Yep. Oh, you were right. No, sharks right.
But you could say, hey, I am interested in cup sharks, and then you realize, oh, well, maybe I'm not. And the other thing, like as a
It's a
teacher, you
quick way
can
to
point out,
filter it out.
yeah, is that, hey, stuff in the green or the yellow, there's a lot less resources that you're going to find. And so if we're looking for great whites, there I can narrow it down, and I can go in as far as I want on here. Now, the other thing that it does is it'll pull up on the right the actual resources right in there. So I can go directly to that article.
And
Now,
apparently Stevensky is really into sharks because he's done 8 stories. on sharks.
we'll go back to that page in a
Very good.
second.
Very good at sharks.
But one other thing I would point out is Topic Finder, you can look at a couple ways. We were looking at it as in tiles. You can also look at it as a wheel. And I don't know. I don't necessarily have a preference there. It's just a different way of looking at it. Kind of depends on the kid, right? Like some kids the wheel might work better. Some kids the tiles
That
might work
actually
better.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
I like the wheelbarrow.
I like tiles better, but I can see why you like the wheel.
Well, that's good for kids that have different ways of looking at it.
But certainly, I think this is a great resource for teachers, you know, and I see a lot of things for it, you know, like if you said, hey, our topic is on sharks, then, you know, you kind of give the opportunity to kids to go their own way. They can see, oh, I think I'll go, you know, with great whites or with movies, and, you know, here's why. I've got more research there.
This is so much better than just saying, okay, pick a topic and Google. Because they get lost when
Or
you
throwing
have to do
them
it.
in EBSCO or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
EBSCO, I love EBSCO, but this is a good way to help filter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we have I have lots of thoughts on that, and I'm sure you do too, on the effectiveness of research when we just turn kids loose on things.
Yeah.
So one other thing that you can do in the student resources and context is you can go to browse topics. And these topics are ones that they have, let's just pick one. I don't think we have sharks in here, but let's say we were doing the Odyssey, okay?
Can I ask one question
Yes,
before
go
you move on? For that last tool, do you guys have like any one-pagers of quick explanations of how students can go through those steps that you just walked us through?
That would be awesome.
I don't have one, but they probably do in Gale, like in their help section.
Okay.
But we haven't. But that's,
Can we put that on our
that would be
future
good, yes.
request?
That would be nice.
I think one pagers or half a pagers
Right.
for
I'll have to get in
students
there and use it.
and teachers.
Exactly.
I say it'd be just as much for teachers
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
with students.
One of my, I might have one that one of my librarians made.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I know she taught her faculty about it. I'll ask her and I'll send
Yeah.
it to you.
And they haven't changed with Topic Finder because it used to only be available in the Power Search, but now they have it available in any of the databases in the Advanced Search. So
Is
it's
it
a
in-
lot more accessible.
Is it in 6.8 as well under the advanced search or just
We can come up
9.12?
in a second.
Okay.
That is a good question. Yeah, I don't know. Well, let's say we're doing the Odyssey. You can see when it's a topic. Now I've got some, almost like an encyclopedia type reference here on, hey, here's what the Odyssey would be, but this would go for any of the topics that they have there. And they had a lot. I don't know if you looked at the list. So now that I'm in a particular article, you do have the ability to listen to it. Anything in Gale is able to do that. And then I think one of the best things is the citation tools. So this will allow you to cite this in one of three ways, either in MLA, APA, or Chicago. And you're all using MLA, right? I heard that.
I think, yeah, it varies, but
Social studies will use the APA, but I would bet most of you.
that's
You're at the
fantastic.
university and then they do Chicago and social studies.
Our tests use Chicago.
Our students,
Well, at least the tests are written in Chicago
that was a battle.
because I put notes.
My department did not agree
Cypress College,
because
MLA,
they were English
Cal State
majors.
Fullerton, MLA,
Gotcha.
Utah State, APA. It just depends where you go.
Yeah, so,
Departments also.
but you've got both there, so
Yeah.
I mean, that's really kind of the key thing. Now, let's say I'm in this article and I say, oh, you know what, I really like this selection of text right here. I can click and drag, and then with that I can highlight it. And then I can also put a note, maybe my note is like, use, and, whoops. Argument.
Do you need to be logged in?
Well, here's what we're going to do with that now. So now that I've got this highlight and this note, over on the right, you'll notice that I have the option to either send it to Google Drive or OneDrive. So whether you're using Microsoft or Google, when I select this, and this isn't my computer, so I'm not going to do it, but what it'll do is it'll open up in Drive or in OneDrive, and it'll create a folder there with the entire article, including my highlights and my notes. So teachers can use this. I think it's great for teachers, but like for students, you could really keep all of your research organized.
It puts it in the one place, it's got those highlights so they can go back to
And
it
it keeps all
without
their
having to
notes.
swap through tabs, and
Right.
that's awesome.
And so in Google Drive, it'll have a folder that'll say student resources and context, and it'll have that article in there.
Wow.
So really, really kind of nice there. One thing that I would point out is, you see where it says save to my folder? That gets confusing. I would say don't even use that. Just either send it to Google Drive or OneDrive, because the folder is only for the session that you're in there is when it'll save. So I would just save it to Google Drive or OneDrive. And then you can certainly print this off or email it out. It'll also translate into quite a few different languages. You can see there. Now those are not, I mean, with any translation, you have to realize they're using like the Google Translate
It's a
tool,
transliterator, so.
which is a word-for-word one, not necessarily a meaning one. But at
Money
least
you make.
it'll get you somewhere, right? Like,
Yeah.
It'll certainly help out. Now, the one reason that I like Gale is that no matter which database I'm in, these tools are in the same place, and the look and feel is the same. EBSCO's great, it's extensive, it's vast, But when you get into different databases, it looks different, and it's confusing for kids and even for teachers. So the one nice thing about Gale is we'll back out of this one, and we'll go to biography and context next. When I go to biography and context, it's going to have the same look and feel. So there you can see Madeline Albright, and then I've got, all sorts of other people that they highlight, but I can search for anybody that I want here. So I can just start with Abraham Lincoln. And there we go. And so there again, there's some background information on Abraham Lincoln, but then I can go directly, to the sources that they have. And they have what they call featured content, and all that means is these are highlighted by the Gale staff as, maybe their better stuff that they have in there. But that's all that featured means, is the Gale staff has set that apart. So in the advanced search, in biography and context, and I'm pointing this out because it will allow you to do something you can't do in any of the other searches. It has what's called person search. So when I go to person search, what it'll allow me to do is search by gender, nationality, ethnicity, even occupation, place of birth, death, and then you can search by dates as well. So you can really narrow things down. Like, let's say I'm in a science class and I'm looking for astronomers in the 1800s. Like, I can do that right here on this page. But that's really the only place that you can really dial things in that specifically.
Okay, take me there again.
Okay, so I'm in biography and context.
So I don't know if
So
I don't click on biography, or I do.
No. So you're going to go back to
I'm back at the very first page.
you got to go back one more than that. You're in student resources and context.
Okay.
You want to go back to the main Gale page that I'm on right here. You might have to go back a tab. There you go, that one. Now go to biography.
Oh, up there, okay.
And then within biography, you're going to go to advanced.
Right. And then I go, okay,
And
thank
then you can go to person search from there.
you. And can go all
And then
the
you
way.
can really dial in your search however you want to there. So I think that, so student resources and context is going to be kind of your go-to database just for overall research. Biography, when we're looking at people, you can really narrow that down. But opposing viewpoints might be the best database in here.
Really?
Great stuff if you're teaching argument.
Yes.
This is perfect, because we're just starting argument right now, so
Yeah,
we're
I
all
didn't-
over the.
I
Here's a
didn't know
nice
about
thing
this
here.
when I was teaching, and when I saw this, I was like, oh,
Wish you
if only. Like,
This
really
is
is a
one
great
where I
tool.
would definitely recommend going to the Browse All Topics,
Mhm.
because these are ones that they have really kind of done the work for you. And
Oh,
so,
fake news on social media?
Yeah, they
That's
already-
gotta be, yeah.
so we'll go to that.
That's
So we'll go to
awesome.
fake news on social media.
It's the first thing I saw.
And again, they're going to give you some background
Pizzagate.
information of this. And you've got early forms, and they've got consequences, responsibilities, and so forth. So they've done a lot of the research for you here, and then I can just go to their viewpoints. I can go to references, I can go to statistics, and that's how up to date these topics are. This is a pretty new topic overall, fake news. And they've already got some academic journal entries here. But I think the browse topics, like, I don't care what somebody's teaching, whether it's social studies, English, or whatever, you all have topics where you want kids to research. Why have them just go wild on Google and
Exactly.
get results
bunch
all
of
over
crap.
the place?
Yeah.
And they can go here and get vetted academic resources that are gonna have the citation. One thing that I was a social studies teacher, and I would always tell my kids, I'd say, like, if you don't use this and you just search for it on the web, you're gonna have to figure out how to cite it. If you use this, you don't have to spend that time doing that.
You sold them just right there.
Well, yeah, because the citation is huge, but also the fact that it's been vetted.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you can go on Google or, Wikipedia. It's like, that's a jumping off point at best.
Yeah.
And say, oh, on Wikipedia it said this, and it's like, well, yeah, let's look up the tree octopus and,
Yeah.
let's see what about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
And then the kids can save all the articles either in their Google Drive or their OneDrive. They can save all their highlights and their notes. Easy to cite there. So for research, I think Gale is fantastic. That topic finder is great. The person finder in the biography, and then in opposing viewpoints, I think that's, if you're teaching any type of debate or argument, have them go there. If you're supplying the topic, you're going to get a lot of help there. If you're kind of opening that up, it's a great place for kids to go to figure out which topic they want. Now, I think the best research tool that we have in the online library, I'm going to show you right now, is called Noodle Tools. How many of you have used
I've
that?
played with
It's
it and
my
I've shown it
Is
to
it?
teachers.
So Noodle Tools is as robust and extensive as you want it to be. But I think it's great. Janice, why do you like it?
One of the things I really like is the encouragement it gives for students to do the kind of thinking we ask them to do for research. So often they just copy pieces of text over. But this one allows them to make notes on the article, so they can have the whole copy.
Sticky notes.
And then they have a box where they're supposed to write their summary, and then another box that says the so what.
Yeah.
That was
That's
my
probably my
thinking, my
favorite feature
release,
is
that
so what.
piece that encourages the kids.
Yeah.
And of course, the no papers and nothing gets lost. And they can share it with their teachers, they can share it with their peers.
Right.
So
Does it cost?
No, it's everything.
paid for by the state of Utah.
I introduced this, about a year and a half ago at a literacy directors meeting and had a workshop on it because there was almost no traffic on Noodle Tools. And after that, the traffic went up quite a bit. And it was something that I wasn't aware of. And it was something that there was contemplation of, do we want to continue, paying for this? And so, yeah. And then when I saw the so what, because that's the question I always ask, so what? Who cares? Why is this important? And it makes the students really think about why this is important.
Well, and the ability of
Yeah.
the teacher to send messages to the kids and set them up to-do lists and help chunk that big, huge piece of research into doable chunks.
So I'll show you what it looks like and then explain a few things. It is pretty robust. I would say overall we probably would need a full hour to 2 training.
We did, yeah.
On it, but I will show it because I think it is the best tool out there. So this,
Oh, and the digital card stacking. When
Oh,
you and I were young, we
yes.
did the little 3x5
Oh my
cards.
gosh.
When the kids take notes, they can stack them in, and then it creates an outline for them to use. So they don't even have to do their own outline.
So do you just do an individual subscription when you're signing up?
no, so here's the key thing. You have to make sure that you go through Utah's online library and don't go to Noodle Tools.
Oh, okay,
If you go to Noodle Tools, it'll make you pay.
gotcha.
If you go through the online library, you'll be authenticated in, and it has every school in the whole state on there.
Sweet.
And the reason why you would want that is teachers can set up their own Dropbox, and so kids can just put their research paper in to the teacher, and within the schools they can have all that. So here's just kind of a quick look at it. I've got my research question here. In this case, it's why are frogs dying out? And then I have a place to put in my thesis once I have enough research to do that. And then I can share this with other students and have them work on it with me, either as a collaborator where they can edit and delete, or as a peer reviewer where they can just comment. And then I can also share it with the teacher who would have access to the whole thing. And here's what I really like about it from the teacher point of view, is the biggest problem that I felt as a student is when I turned in my paper, it was done, and then the teacher gave me feedback.
Yeah.
And I needed all that feedback before. I didn't need it when I was done. And using Noodle Tools, the teacher can give feedback throughout the process, and not just at the end when the paper's finished. They can look at the citations, they can look at the outline, they can look at the work through the whole way and really give the feedback the kids need.
Do you have a school library password? So I had an account
Mm-hmm.
and I need to revalidate, and I can skip it, but I can only skip it till February 13th.
Good.
That would be a statewide password, wouldn't it?
What district are you in?
Jordan.
Jordan.
Oh, we're a problem.
No.
Oh, Jordan.
We just have a different setup than some of the other districts do.
Okay. We'll get
So
somewhere.
that might be
That's
why
okay.
that
Okay.
is. what it is. Now, as Janice mentioned, you can put a to-do list on here, which I think is really great, and you can put due dates on there for kids. Hey, get your topic and your research question by this date. You need to find citations by this date, and then the project's going to be due here. But I think that's really nice to have a to-do list on there for students. And then the sources. So here's another reason why I would use Gale. So I'm going to go back to Gale, and I'm going to go to the student resources and context, and we're just going to technical log for this day. So let's say that I had this resource that I really liked in Gale, and I wanted to use it in my paper. One of the things that I can do is I can, what is it? Let's see. No, I can do it.
Are you looking at the way to link them?
Is it here? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So in the citation tools, I can export this into Noodle Tools. And it'll create that citation for me. And I don't have to do, like, it's kind of an extensive process in Noodle Tools to add a citation. But if I'm using Gale, then it'll just automatically export to Noodle Tools. And then what it'll do is on this page, it'll say, okay, which project do you want it to go into? And I can put it into whatever project that I'm working on. And then that citation's in there for me. And basically what I've done is, like Janice said, you know, when we were kids, we had to go to the library with the 3x5 cards. Is it just created one of those cards for me with that citation?
You can sort on a virtual tabletop.
Yes.
Remember card catalog?
Oh,
Like the actual.
I
Even
still
a
have my recipe box from my thesis in college.
But yeah,
I grew very attached to it.
Oh, that. Mhm.
some of our teachers still hand kids a mimeograph sheet with images of 3x5 cards on it. And say,
No
no,
way.
try this. Try this. Wow,
So
really?
here's what the note cards look like. You can see here's the tabletop where I can sort all of them. You know, in an extensive research paper, I'm going to have a lot of stuff, and I need a way to delineate.
It seriously is my living room floor. My thesis.
There you go. So I can
didn't have a
color
coffee
code
table,
things.
so.
I can put tabs on them. I can, you know, like on this one, I can put like an exclamation mark, meaning I need more information on this topic. But there's lots of stuff I can do here. But the note cards themselves, I think, are really kind of the genius here. So you would give your note card a title, and then you're going to tie it to whatever citation that you put in there, whatever source. So the way that I always say to do this, put in your citations first, and then make your note card. Don't do it the other way, because then I can tie it directly to the source here. And then I can put in a direct quotation. So Noodle Tools says, hey, we know you've got the copy and paste generation. We understand that, but we're going to help them out. So let's say that this is the text that I really like. So I'm going to go back into my note card, and I'm going to paste that text right in there. Noodle Tools says, hey, go ahead and do that. You can copy and paste. But now, in your own words, you're going to write it. And I mean, I just think this helps teachers out. It helps students out. It's such a great resource for research. And then the kids, they can look at this, they can still have this here, but they've got to put it in their own
It gives
words.
them a chance to unpack what it means.
And then here's the so what part, okay, now
The
that I've got this,
elaboration.
what am I going to do with it?
And I think that is, so the my ideas is the elaboration component, and really truly,
Or the significance, it depends on what you're trying to.
However,
Yeah, why does
Whatever
this
use
matter?
this, how does
Yeah.
it fit?
I still like the
Yeah.
silhouette. That's
So,
that's the
but I
terminology.
think that's
use.
one of our key
Silhouette.
things that we see in writing.
Yeah.
That we need.
Well, when we think about the integration of knowledge and ideas, that's something that's statewide, subject-wide, grade-wide, an issue. And this is where you get a chance
So
to,
what?
this is where you get a chance to say, okay, I've pulled the quote, I've summarized it. We've got a lot of good summarizers in the state of Utah. They are really good at summarizing. But getting above and beyond that and getting into that, well, what does this mean? Why is it important? That gives them a chance to compartmentalize it here. And so that's one of my favorite things about this tool.
And so the great thing for the teacher is they can see each student's individual note cards and give them feedback on it, and make sure that they're doing the type of thinking and research that they need to be doing there.
Before they get to the end of doing it.
Before they get to it. Exactly.
There's a training on this, isn't there, on UAN?
So we have a course.
Yeah.
It's a 6-week online course,
Mhm.
and it'll go through the whole process of using Gale and Noodle tools together and
And
get
is that for
started.
credit?
It is for credit.
Do you want to send me a link for that so I could send that out?
Sure. Yeah.
You also have people who come out and do an introductory,
Yeah, and I-
And we did that, was it
And I can
last year or the
come
year
out.
before we did that?
And link.
And it was great.
Yeah, and like I said, a good training is at least an hour. You can go longer than that.
Yeah. Is it an online course?
Yes, it is. It's a 6-week online course, and it's called Technology to Improve Student Research. It's currently running right now. And then you can see you can create an outline over here. After I've got my note cards, then I can create my outline. And then the last thing, the one that says paper.
Your cards create that outline for you as you sort them out.
Is it will link Google Drive, and you can just start your paper right there. So yeah, it's a robust tool, and I think even at the junior high level, even if they're just learning how to cite sources, and maybe start with the note cards, great, get them
This
started
is
on
something
that.
you can scaffold.
And then, maybe they're not doing the 5 to 10 page research paper that they're doing in high school, where they really need this, but at least they get the idea. I can't just say whatever I want. I need to research it, and it needs to be in my own words, and I've got to cite my sources. And this is, a great tool to do that. So those are the 3 main things that I wanted to cover while I was here, was Topic Finder, and then in Gale, how to use Gale, and then Noodle tools. But we can go in detail on any of those things. I'm happy to come out to your particular district and work with teachers there. Like I said, we come out for an hour, a couple hours, whatever block of time you want, and really sit down and delve into these as much as you want.
Does anybody have any
Card.
questions? Yeah, as I say, questions or comments, fire away.
Okay.
So any online questions?
Technology.
So on our site, I'll just show you a couple things. If you go to professional development, you can go to the request a presentation, and there is where you can request to have one of us come out.
And I can say Noodle tools,
Right.
biography and context.
And you can even,
blah, blah.
you could even say me, hey, Jared came to this training, we'd be happy to have you come. That would be fun.
They've been really good at providing input. If you have a mini conference, they can do a breakout session, set up for you on the tools or about anything else they do.
Yeah, my
Very
teachers
good.
are,
If they have a choice, they may not choose.
Well, they hear research, and nobody wants to do research, right? It's such a term.
but they want to know how everybody else does
Yes.
research really bad. And that's one of the things that I came across. They want to know how everybody else does everything. But they have so little opportunity to collaborate with other teachers in different schools,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So what mine proposed was let's get together once a month and do bite-sized PD where we get together for 2 hours. And the first 30 minutes to an hour is some topic that they gave me a huge list of things that I could start with. And then the rest is just whatever. Or we flip-flop it and they do, collaborate or share ideas first and then we do the topic. But that's what this would be a really good fit for.
I think my language arts teachers would just speed this out.
Whenever I've been at UEM for 4 years now, and I came from Davis, but I also taught Granite. And when people ask me, like, what's the big thing that you since you've been at UEN, it was just that.
Really?
That right there. So, anyhow, happy to help out in any way that we can. Feel free to, and you can contact me directly if you want. You can certainly put in a formal request for a presentation. Either way will work.
And I can always try and combine. We did a Noodles Gale workshop. I want to say it was summer 2017, and maybe, I can't remember exactly when, but we had quite a few people show up, and we had a good turnout, and it went really well. But even, just thinking from that to where we are now, there's a lot of things that have changed and a lot of things.
Yeah, they just added Topic Finder to the advanced search like last week. So like that just barely changed.
So maybe looking towards next year, at the beginning of the year, I could do something statewide, or if you want them to come specifically to your district, which might be easier, but I'll be happy to figure some stuff out. Because I think, again, I remember as a teacher, we didn't exactly have the best communication with our district office about what was available to us. It was, well, you can figure it out kind of thing.
Right.
And so getting this, I wish I had known more about UAN's library when I was teaching. So it's like, I can think about 5 or 6 papers that I assigned where I'm like, oh man, this was a train wreck. And this could have been so much better had I had those tools.
Exactly.
In Gale, you can't access the topic finder for 6-8. So if you ever get the Gale's ear, that would be a good.
And the opposing viewpoints is not
Yeah.
available 6-8 either. And it should be nice if they had a similar.
Right.
Agreed.
No, I totally agree.
I think
If you
that's
ever
good
get to
feedback
talk to
that
them.
they can take back.
We would like that.
And I don't think they'd be opposed to building that in
Yeah.
Yeah.
if it's possible.
I think it's like, did we used to have it? I think we had it in the old series, we had opposing viewpoints, but maybe since Gale, we've not had it in 6-8.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
Thank you.
All right, well, hey, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for being patient with us.
Oh.
So once again, that's Jared Fossum. Thank you very much. So for the remainder of the meeting, we're just going to talk about a couple more things. Let me run through that. Megan's slides are better, so I just added them today. So, and talking about the updated ELA assessment tools, one of the things that she and I have been working on was the UEN writing collection. So there had been a K-6 writing collection done, and I was on part of that team a couple of years ago. And we had worked through some things that had been done with Davis and some writing samples at the secondary level, and we wanted to get them all in one place. And so we've worked really hard over the past year or so to get everything siphoned through. But if you click on this link, it will take you to the writing collection project. And as you can see, there's kindergarten informational and kindergarten opinion. When you get down to 6th grade, we did not have a 6th grade argumentative with the K-6 program that we were doing. But when we got to 7th grade, we were able to do informational and argumentative up to 12th grade, which just had an informational. I can't remember why they did not do an argumentative with 12th grade, but we were happy to even get a 12th grade informational, because typically after 11th grade, you don't really see anything. And so I'll just walk you through some of the prompts and some of the resources that are there. So with each one of these, Jessica was so awesome to work with from UAN. Again, UAN was so fantastic. She was able to get these up. We have the prompt, what was expected and the sources that the students had to read. And I'm just scrolling through really fast, but gives them a few things. Of course, Gladiator, who can forget, are you not entertained? Fantastic line. But it gave, so once the students read through this text, it was a writing on demand. I can't remember the exact time that they had to do, but we've got so there was the prompt, and then we have the annotated samples and the unannotated samples. So if you wanted to show this to your teachers about assessment or what this could look like, if you were a teacher that was looking to give a grade on this based on like a standards-based grading, what would that look like? And giving the teachers a chance to say, oh, I think this would be a 2 or a 3 for whatever reason, and then looking at the annotated samples. I think, did they put them all into one document? I think they did. Instead of one sample here, one sample there, they put them all in the in the same document. And so as you can see, the annotated ones shows you topics started after induction, but you can see
If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the rubric there. And so basically, teacher committees got together and they agreed on the score and why. And so what we did is we put all the information there and pointed out what those teacher committees wanted pointed out and the justification for that score. And you will notice that the rubric is the exact same that you would have seen on Sage, now just on Rise.
Yeah.
So this is what we used to write the algorithms for the grading.
No, not
Okay.
these, no. So this was just a separate workshop that was done in order to provide more tools for teachers. So you can see student samples, and I believe the group of teachers, it was sizable. I want to say
And it was diverse.
25 teachers all had to basically come to consensus on which ones. Now,
And they did separate them into teams, but the teams would still have like 6 or 7 teachers. So it wasn't just one or two teachers saying, oh, this is how we feel. They had to come to consensus. And after they came to a consensus, we had this list of all the writing samples that they went through. And we had to, that's when we started looking through all of what the grades that they would give them. And we started looking through and saying, okay, this would be a good sample. And it's not, here's what 3s and 4s look like. Here's what a 3, we mix it up like a 2-3-2 or a 4-4-2, a 1-1-1. We wanted this to be very, very varied, for lack of a better term, so that teachers could see what these assessments, what the assessment was of the writing, and get a chance to see, okay, this is what a 2 would look like. And this was, again, a teacher consensus. Teachers did this first, and then we looked at it, and there were a couple that were like, this is kind of muggy for saying this is what a 2-2-2 would look like. We wanted something that was very specific to what a 2-2-2 would look like.
And do note that we say samples.
Samples.
Not
Not
exemplars.
examples. Yeah.
This by no means should guide a student in saying like, this is exactly what my essay should look like. These are just samples, so teachers can get a feel for, based on the standards and the rubrics that have been used on state assessments, to inform instruction and why they would get scores that they could get. But also to just provide another resource of, hey, here are some prompts that you can use and resources that are just readily available. And you can use them, also the unannotated student prompts, have the students assess them, and deconstruct and reconstruct and revise and edit the writing as well.
It's a good tool for them to see, okay, this is what I'm reaching for. This is the kind of, just to get it in their mind of what they should be doing.
One thing you will find as you get into the upper grades, the editing and conventions, it was very difficult to find 0s and 1s. So almost all of them are going to be 2s for that category, because they seem to have a better command at least at that point. So that portion of the rubric kind of had to fall by the wayside, and it was just more of a focus on statement of purpose and evidence and elaboration. So we found that was not as much of an issue, which is great.
Yeah. And I remember workshopping when I was at the UNS School District. That was an alternative routes to licensure teachers, so I didn't go the traditional route. And one of the eye-opening experiences for me was actually sitting down and doing a workshop like this for a day, where we were looking at student samples and we were teaming up and saying, here's, based on this standards-based grading, this is what it would look like. That was a real eye-opener for me to really understand how I should be assessing, what I should be looking for, things that I was totally missing. And when I look at this tool, it's like this is what I feel I experienced, and a good way for teachers to see what this looked like, especially for like our friendly student teachers. This is a great tool. Caesar, comment on one?
No,
Okay.
except that I couldn't find the course online, so you're going to send that on?
I'm going to send out the link. All right,
Yes,
I
you
will do
are.
that.
I will assign
I'll
that to
be
you.
happy to do that. But again, what I liked about this is Jessica put this together real nice from UEN. So we have argumentative, we have informational, and it gave us a chance. I teach a course for reading endorsement with the Tooele School District and Weber State, and I'm going to be using this as part of next week's session. Is getting teachers into this and looking at this and seeing what's available. And I really like that we have the prompts, we have the text set that came with the prompts, we have the unannotated, so that gives, if you were to have a professional development, show them what the prompts are, have them look at the unannotated, make their own annotations, and then start comparing and contrasting and seeing what they're missing, or insights that they might have that have been missed from this committee of teachers, because that also happens. To me, I think it's a really good opportunity for a professional development tool.
Yeah, we were just going to get together and write some. So thanks.
Yeah, no, we do not have to do it. Yeah, I would also very much encourage, because this is something that's been out there, except for it wasn't fleshed out for secondary, but I would remind new teachers for elementary that this is a tool that's there and has been available for a while, so maybe just refresh everyone's brains.
Yeah, and when I was on the K-6 team, one of the things we noticed is there was a lot of good summarizers in elementary, but not a lot of kids that were using that integration of knowledge and ideas. It's where it helped develop our idea, like we should run some workshops on this of what does this look like to take it to a deeper level. And I noticed I can't remember what grade it was, there was a science text and there were some charts and graphs, and one of the things we noticed when I was sitting with the teacher committee is that students weren't able to take information from the graph and really make meaning with it. And they weren't even summarizing it very well. They just kind of, oh, that's a graph, that's important, but they weren't really highlighting what it meant. So we noticed the gap there with looking at different forms of text within a text set and being able to really differentiate what those things meant.
Were these samples, were they actually student written?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, these were student written, and yeah.
Was this the workshop last summer?
Mm-mm.
I'm like, why wasn't I there?
I'm going to say it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was done a while ago.
It wasn't the text sets one, was it? Or was it? No, it wasn't that.
Mhm. It was 2 years ago, but it was up in with Davis teachers.
That's why you and I weren't invited.
I'm always invited. I just sometimes go, I can't make it that Thursday.
I think it was a project that they did within Davis that
Oh, maybe.
Yes.
shared
That,
out.
then we weren't invited. You're right, Janice.
Well, it was a partnership with USPD
Yeah.
and Davis. Yeah.
But awesome stuff. Elementary teachers, I'm just really excited we now have 7 through 12.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are,
And that's one of the things I'm like, we need to get more stuff up there. And
Yeah.
so
we are excited that it's done because this has been on our to-do list.
it took a long time.
It took a long time. I mean,
Well, it's a lot of work.
yeah.
It's a lot.
It
Well,
took,
it's like the teachers put all that work in, and I was like, okay, what do we want this to look like? And
Yeah.
yeah.
No, thank you. Awesome.
and then, what else?
Well, I think that's all you had highlighted. You had some WIDA stuff, but I didn't
Yeah,
include
no, that's okay. Ignore
Um,
me and,
So that was, Tim Shanahan's coming to Utah on March 21st and 22nd. He's going to be doing secondary specific for one session and elementary specific for another session. So there you have options. We're still working on locations. I did send in the Google Drive in the folder, there's an email that was talking about what specifically is going to be happening. I just found out when at first I was like, oh great, he's coming, it's going to be awesome. I am going to be on spring break in Cedar City, so I'm going to miss it. But
I should.
I'm going to chat with him at Plain Talk about some disciplinary literacy things, and he's going to be talking specifically about what disciplinary literacy is at the secondary level. You'll probably see some of the slides that I shared. Again, I pilfered them from him, so he'll probably talk in a lot more detail about that. It's going to be a half day. You don't need to do half day one day, half day next day. It's just one session. That's going to be a half day. I'm really excited for that. More details will be coming when we get some more specifics of exactly where it's going to be and what the expectations are. But I'm really excited. Jennifer, somehow she knows somebody who is willing to send him out free of charge. And we're like, yeah.
It was that company at the bottom,
Big
Steps to
name.
Writing or something, or
It's-
SB something or other.
Yeah. But he was willing to send them out. We're like, we will take advantage of this.
Yeah.
Anytime we can get somebody like that.
Yeah.
So you'll let us know.
Step-by-step learning.
Step-by-step learning, yeah. And then Plain Talk, if your district has a ton of money to throw around and send you off to somewhere,
Or not.
It's
It's
this is one of the
it's one of the best literacy.
it's just
conferences.
it's amazing. If it's not on your radar for this year, I don't know how districts do it with sending either teacher teams or representatives out to an out-of-state conference. I know in Uinta it was like a carousel. It was like you get to go like every 5 or 6 years to one. When that time comes, I would definitely recommend Plain Talk. Get it on your radar. If you go to Plain Talk's website, you can just see what who the presenters are. I mean, it's like the Super Bowl of like literacy gurus. So if not on your radar this year, definitely put it on your radar for next year. It's always around the beginning of February, or mid-February. But definitely keep that in mind. I'm sure I'll be sharing some highlights at our next meeting about some things that I learned at Plain Talk and people that I ran into. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. The next Literacy Directors meeting is going to be March 19th, 2019. It is going to be in Basement West.
Until we can put it down again.
until I get kicked out. No, it should be in Basement West. One of the things I tried to do when I first started here is, in my position was networking initiative, was getting teachers talking to teachers, and it kind of fell flat. I didn't have a lot of the know-how and resources and contacts to make that happen. It's something, when I've been doing the needs assessment, I need to talk about the needs assessment. I'm almost done interviewing with, I think I've got 15 or 16 different LEAs that I've worked with. I still need to get 2 charters. I'm kind of waiting to hear back from one that's willing to do the interviews. They just haven't given me a time. Another charter that I'm still working with, because I have not gotten a charter perspective to make a complete picture. I'm still working with 2 other school districts to set up an interview. What I'm intending to have is what those findings from the needs assessment was, so that we can push for what we want to see in professional learning for the upcoming school year, and also some of my findings from that. So I intend to have that up and ready to discuss. Megan is coming and we'll give more assessment updates. You've been voluntold.
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping that, again, going back to the networking idea, we've been working with Wasatch High School and a reading program that they have been doing for their Tier 2 and Tier 3 kids. And it took a lot of work to get it off the ground, but they've gotten it off the ground and they're starting to see some pretty phenomenal results. They have gotten teacher buy-in, which to me is, I think that's more of a battle than actually getting the students to commit. They've gotten teacher buy-in about having meaningful interactions with a text, whether it's PE or shop or English, or they've gotten their teachers to buy in and say, this is what we're committed to doing this. And so I'm hoping to get Claire Claire Mayer, who's the assistant principal, has been really spearheading this to come in and talk about it. Because when I've done the needs assessment, I've seen several LEAs talk about we need a better, more efficient reading program than what we have. And so I'm hoping that can give some highlights.
So is that the thing that
No,
you sent out?
The reading apprenticeship is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah,
So
oh,
how are we doing?
the reading apprenticeship, that just got passed on to me just a couple days ago. I sent the email that came with this attachment. This is a fairly well, when I was going through my master's, we were looking up reading programs to research, and I actually pulled up reading apprenticeship, and it actually does the Department of Education's warehouse. They actually showed some fairly strong, significant gains in reading comprehension using the reading apprenticeship. And so it looks like this is a good opportunity that will have a very low cost. What I recommend is contacting Diane Lee, who's the program coordinator. It sounds like they were able to procure some money, so because it's expensive. It is not cheap, to where it will be very cost efficient if LEAs are interested. But she would have more information than I would. Again, this got passed on to me. Said, hey, can you pass this on to your literacy directors? But I do know reading apprenticeship, when it got researched by the Department of Ed, they're usually pretty brutal with programs. They'll be like, this doesn't work for these reasons, rather than it does work. And with reading apprenticeship, they did highlight that with reading comprehension, it does show some pretty strong gains.
I've been to this, and I still go back to their book monthly. It's really, it was really good.
I am so glad to hear somebody's had experience with it.
Really good, yeah.
Because I was very interested, and then I saw the price tag. I was like, and
I know,
I'll take your word for it. But I do know that there's some money that was procured so that the cost will be cheaper. I don't know how cheap what that looks like again.
Yeah, and the flyer doesn't not show that.
It does say it requires a 25% cost match.
Yeah.
That we could maybe do through in-kind contributions like subs and hosting.
Right, which is still fuzzy.
Yeah, still not cheap. And again, I would recommend talking to Diane Lee about that. She's the coordinator for that. She would give you the information you need. This was just something that was passed on, and Jennifer asked that I pass this on. And again, I think it would be a good opportunity. I'm glad to hear that you've done reading apprenticeship and it's something that you found useful. When I read about it and researched about it, I was like, this would be awesome. This sounds like a really, going back to our discussion on disciplinary literacy, this sounds like it would hit the nail on the head with that. Like if you were going to do this because we want our kids to be basically an apprentice when we're teaching English, this is what a literary critic thinks like and acts like and sounds like and writes like.
So back to Wasatch District, what are they doing? Is this an instructional framework they developed within their own district or something that they?
It's something that Jennifer and I helped with a little bit, but it took a couple years for them to get it off the ground. But it's a reading program for their Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. And it's, we've been waiting to hear back because this is the first year they're implementing it, to hear back. Basically, they're getting students that are, they've got them in an elective reading course, and they've had almost no opt-outs. The students are committed to being in there, but the commitment is that they work, and as soon as they test out, they're out, and they can go back to whatever class they like.
Right.
But they've been able to develop this culture, and Claire could speak to it a lot more
Yeah,
thoroughly than I could, but
Okay.
I'm hoping to get her to talk about it because it's something that I think I'm hoping could be replicated and modeled elsewhere.
Okay.
Any other questions? We are out of time. We've gone over time. You guys have done a fantastic job. Again, if you could spend, if you're done with your contribution on the secondary literacy framework, great. If you feel like you wanted to get a few more comments in, please take that time and add those comments to the Google Doc so that we can take that back to our state team. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Let's see if our online friends have anything to say.
Just that they highly endorse.
Somebody said it's the best reading instruction program ever.
Or to get the training, you have to have teams of at least 3. One of them has to be a science teacher
In a school?
for school. And as a district, you have to volunteer to help support it by paying for subs and providing locations. And sometimes paying for printed costs.
thinking, the teachers have problems again.
But if they say it's a value of $3,500 per teacher, that means it's about $900 per teacher for us,
Yeah.
which still means pretty pricey.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Because we're dying, we're dying. I mean, we're doing the best we can. We're going at it from a couple different ends, right? You know, like we're looking at reading scores. We've got some schools using Reading Plus, which they're all the rage about.
They
And
do
then
like it, Reading Plus?
They like it a lot.
It's so expensive.
What
Is it
Reading
more than
Plus?
Read 180?
No.
So like
It's-
Read 180 is kind of off the charts, and I don't like the scripted nature of Read 180. I want my teachers to teach. I think they
The
can.
utility in any of those is that it's
Yeah.
not like a babysitter thing. It's,
Right.
I'm actually using the data and.
And so that's what my teachers are loving with it, is that they're 15 minutes. It's not the whole,
Yeah,
it's not
you
the
don't
whole
have
hour.
that time.
No, and like the
Secondary.
most they
Thank you
can,
for coming, guys.
the most they